Good evening, viewers. You're watching Times of Manipur, and this is a special edition of Talking Point, where we will be discussing tonight a very vexed issue of Naga peace talk. The Naga insurgency has been considered as the oldest insurgency in the region, and in 1997, the government of India and the NSNIM have entered into a talk, and the talk has been going on for the last so many years. People of Naga, on the other hand, has been hoping for a final solution to the issue, but that very final solution has been elusive to the people of Nagaland, to the people of Naga inhabited areas. On the other hand, of course, people in other states are apprehensive about the final solution that may bring about when the final solution of Naga issue is being signed. So today, the government, the BJP-led central government, when they have come to the power for the second term, they have promised that the Naga issue will be solved in this tenure. And they have promised to solve it within the next couple of months since they have in the power. Joining us tonight on this talking point is senior journalist PRADIP. Welcome to the show, sir. Next is Assistant Professor of DM College of Arts, Dr. ARAMBAM, NONI. Welcome to the show. And also we have General Secretary of United Committee Manipur, Kuraizamatho. Welcome to the show. My opening question will be to PRADIP. Where do you see the Naga peace talk is heading towards from now on? It has been a very long issue. However, this final solution has never been brought about. So we are, or the people of this region is talking about the final solution especially. So where do you think is the talk heading towards?
I would say that it is very uncertain, that nothing has been settled. In a sense that everybody wants that settlement, especially in Nagaland, people are fatigued. I mean, they've been, the civil society, they've been campaigning for these peace talks. In fact, they came to the tables in 1997 because of the pressure from the civil society, Naga mothers, to Naga hos, to tribal hos, different tribal hos. And the point is they were totally fatigued, and moreover, there was a degeneration of the underground objective. That it was beginning to be seen more as an extortion racket than a revolutionary movement. And also, you have been through it for such a long time, and there's no solution, and there was no apparent avenue to any future solution. So they said, explore that avenue instead of fighting anymore, because that fighting is not going to end anymore. So I think the talks are on that plane, and it has not progressed much. There was an illusion that it is making a progress when the framework agreement was signed and all that. But now, when the deadline was pronounced, it was supposed to be settled in October this month, but that is not happening. The last talk didn't go well, and also suddenly there's talk about the separate constitution and the separate flag came about, and that we know that it's not going to happen, especially after Kashmir, and also it's a catch-22 situation for the NSNIM. Its demands is not just about the flag and the constitution. Demands are objected. They want to be the sole spokesman. There are several other factions. They want them to join NSNIM, then they will have a single thing, which the other groups are objecting to. And the other thing is, the solution that has been is still not very clear. They have not explained what the solution is going to be. But the hint of territorial council outside of Nagaland, and then also the statement by the NSNIM that we don't recognize Nagaland. We have only Nagalim. So recently there was an article by KISHORCHANDRA. He's the leader of the account, and since he said it, he's one of the leaders. Since he said it, it can't be his opinion alone. There's a backing of that particular outlook to the solution attempt. And he was saying that you want to abolish Nagaland, you don't want to recognize Nagaland, then we want to have territorial council in Manipur. So where will the Nagas in Nagaland go? You want us to sacrifice for your sake. That's not going to happen. You want us to have a united Naga ho and all that. But in that ho you have, again, there's going to be a problem because there are more Naga tribes in Manipur than in Nagaland. Yeah. Nagaland, they have 16 tribes. Of that, 2 are not Nagas. One is a Kuki, one is Kasari. So you have 14 tribes there. And if you look at Manipur, Manipur has about 18, I think. So if 18 comes in, majority is going to be on this side. And we're not talking about Manipur only. There's also Arunachal Pradesh. There's also Assam.
Yes.
Assam, and for whatever the reason, there is no talk of merging those the Naga areas in Assam. I don't know for what reason, they haven't explained. Probably Zherangrong, the tribes that are there, Naga tribes that are there are Zherangrong. So there is probably objection from there, or whatever the reason. They have not given the reason, but it's going to be, according to the hints that we have got so far, it's going to be Nagaland plus Naga tribes in Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh, which, if you look at the map again, it's going to be a majority to the non-Nagaland Nagas, and Nagaland tribes will be in a minority. Now, if it was a sovereignty kind of a movement, then there is something else. There you have a separate country, there you rearrange everything. But this is not going to be a sovereign country. Yeah. It's going to be an Indian state. And in the Indian state, the competition is for the reservation, the quotas and all that. So in that kind of a situation, the numerical factor is going to work a lot. I mean, if you have a majority number of people from outside Nagaland, Nagaland tribes will feel that their privileges will actually win. It's going to become
so overall, the final solution is still unsettled.
I think unsettled and also elusive. And I don't know how these issues are going to be settled. Okay. But unless these issues are settled, and there are many more, and I'm just mentioning one aspect of it, there are many more nebulous kind of grouping which the peace negotiators are looking for. But I don't know how, but I have just spelled out one aspect of the problem, a thorny problem. But there are so many other thorny problems as well. So I'm not very certain how these issues are going to be resolved.
Yes,
and unless these issues are resolved, I don't think it's going to move forward.
So the final solution is still uncertain. How do you think about it? Because if you look at the way things are going on now, or how serious the central government is to resolve this issue, do you still believe that the fate of Naga Togo is still hanging in the balance?
Well, first of all, before coming to the topic, let me just extend my gratitude and appreciation to TOMTV, especially for bringing up this English edition of debate.
Thank you.
This is very important because for the last 30-40 years, our kind of Manipur state's issues has been always confined to this region, and it cannot be reached to the unreached people, which need to be reached, and that's very important. And we really appreciate for these initiatives.
Thank you.
Well, coming to the point, the complexities of the entire these Naga issues, for not being able to come to a amicable settlement, is because of the way the Naga issue comes up post 1975 Shillong Accord. If I try to go back a bit, we can also recall the incidents of how NSCN comes up. After 1975 Shillong Accord, NSCN comes up because they are not in agreement with what have been settled in that accord. Because of that, they comes out of that agreement, and they again begin a new movement. While that movement comes up, the very leaders from Manipur, that is Mr. who is also the present General Secretary, Mr. T.H. Muiba, he comes up with a new idea, that is integration of the entire the so-called Naga inhabited areas, and that includes the major, I would say 92, almost 70% of the territory of Manipur, without the consent of the people of Manipur. So with that idea, now they have started claiming that that very region inhabited by the so-called Naga territories are their ancestral lands, and it doesn't belong to anybody else, which is totally not true.
Okay.
Because when we look at the little more earlier again in the history, the idea of Manipur and the process of civilization with its tribes being coexisting for not less than 1,000 years we already has our territory being expanded till, you know, till Myanmar Chinwin River. We have in the west we have till Sipsagar, and in the southern part we have till Sylhet. So this territory has been, from time to time, it has been you know, constricted, and it has been expanded. But the last territory, that territorial boundary that we have, can be recalled in the year 1833. There was an agreement between the then British government and the King of Manipur, that's Gambhir Singh. We call it Jiri Treaty. In that treaty, what was agreed was very interesting, because in that treaty it was been agreed and, you know, signed that the ultimate boundary of Manipur, which was previously located in Chandrapur area of Kachar district, which is deep inside from the present boundary, has been, you know, limited to the Jiri River, and that has been to our last territorial boundary. And it has been signed, the agreement has been signed between the British government and the Manipur. So if the territorial boundary of Manipur till today is Jiri, then how come the territory of this Tamenglong district be considered as the territory of, you know, extended, you know, greater Nagaland or southern Nagaland or whatever? So this kind of complexities and the affinities between the ethnic communities. Say, for example, in Manipur, PRADIP has just mentioned about 18 tribes. Of these 18 tribes, almost all the tribes will be having certain affinities and cultural, socio-cultural and economic, you know, bonding and interdependency relationship with the so-called Meitei groups. And it has been existing for 1,000 years. Now, when the NACN-IM started you know, looking on the other side, claiming that the Ao, the Angami, the Sema of the Nagaland tribes, now they are similar to Tangkhus, Maram, Mao, Chiru, Chothe, Anal, and so that 18 tribes, which is totally false. So when they want to, you know, bring up to a common nomenclature, the so-called, the very term Naga, which is also very much, you know, non-existent, because it is just a artificially crafted term, and it has been, they try to conglomerate in under this nomenclature. And because of that complexities, when they left out the very so-called Meitei groups and the other communities inhabiting in the territory of Manipur, then it is like, you know, you are trying to bifurcate a territory which has been existing for so many years, and the idea of Manipur is being totally compromised. So that has created the entire complexities. So now when they try to settle it out, the so-called people who don't believe in that idea of the Pan-Naga, you know, concept, and who believe in the idea of Manipur is now against it. And because of that, India government is not being able to do anything. And that has been proven in the year 2001. And I don't think the government of India will forget that very easily, because that incident happened because of their, you know, what do you say, recklessness at the time of coming to a solution, coming to an agreement, without considering the, you know, real stakeholders. So if they don't want to repeat that again, they have to be very cautious, and they should try to take everyone on board before coming to any solution. And if they don't try to, you know, pursue that and resolve that issues first, then the settlement is not going to go anywhere. So that's what we think. And above that, of course, we, the United Committee Manipur and the people of Manipur, do welcome the early solutions of this very, you know, prolonged 22 years long peace process. We do welcome it, but it should not be at the cost of, you know, compromising the idea of Manipur. The idea of Manipur should remain intact, and they should also honor, because we as a Manipuri merged or so-called annexed to the Indian Union as one political entity. We were sovereign before that. Everyone knows it. They knows it. The whole world knows it. We were sovereign, and post that merger agreement, the so-called merger agreement in 1949, we became part of India, and we joined to the Indian Union as one political entity, and that should be respected forever. They should not cross the limit, and that's what our just condition is. So there should not be any, the government of India should not attempt anything in the line of, you know, try to create a administration in the name of ethnicity,
Okay.
you know, in the name of particular community. It should be, you know, generally done. Otherwise, it will always have a, you know, communal rift, and it will always create a communal tension, and it will also, you know, create certain problems between government of India and the people of Manipur.
Okay,
And that
so
will be-
the final peaceful solution to Naga issue is always and always welcomed by one and all, but it should not be at the cost of any neighboring state or any neighboring community. That's the point that you know, UCM General Secretary has put forward. Now, there was a time we believed that the Naga's demand was for sovereign state or the territorial boundary of Naga people, be it, you know, within the Naga or beyond the Naga. However, if you look, you know, what's happening right now, the demand for the sovereign has been left out. The demand for any pan-Naga, you know, status is being left out. What we see now is the identity. So, what do you think? Do Naga still have the demand for the territorial, you know, integrity, territorial boundary, or it just now reduced to the identity crisis?
I think that's a very reasonable question. First, I think the political history of the Nagas movement, for instance, can be seen from two dimensions. One that has originally, which has come from the Nagaland, and the later part of the movement, which has got extension towards other parts of the Northeast. And I think you raised this very important question, whether they have really changed the dimension of movement. And I think it's a very complex question to answer, because if you look at the last week's September interview of NSCNIM General Secretary Mr. Muiva, I think he again repeated the same old agenda, that is constitution, flag and sovereignty, which means that particularly, at least from the point of NSCNIM, the idea of sovereignty, constitution and flag still holds on, I guess.
Yeah.
Probably this is also an indication of the post 370 quote unquote abrogation and the scenario in the other parts of the country. And I think NSCNIM, being a party involved in one of the longest peace talks ever happened probably in this Southeast Asian or South Asian region, I think it has got reasonable anxieties, which is hinting to the complexity of the movement itself and the kind of demand they raised. I think we can actually discuss the NSCNIM movement from a couple of dimensions. For example, 1929, they made it very clear that they want self-determination, which came from NNC, or what you call the background of Naga Club.
Simon Commission.
And then again, 40s, they became underground. They met Gandhi. Gandhi was slightly lenient towards a Naga movement for independence, but Nehru in 52 completely rejected, hammering on table, said that heavens fall, Nagas will never be given independence. Similarly, the same ideological leaning was expressed in 1977 when Shastri spoke with Fizzo in 1977, London, and Fizzo, Shastri clearly denied the commitment once expressed by Gandhi. In this pattern, we can say that the very notion of sovereignty and flag or constitution outside India probably was actually a very complex issue raised by the Naga movement. The same heritage of complexity has now become another phase of complexity, because now it seems like, as other panelists have pointed out, that there is a growing intensity of anxiety from the point of the Nagaland and from the point of the non-Nagaland Nagas. Perhaps I think Mr. Muiva is actually still trying to hold on to his idea of movement by raising the Naga question from that classical point of view. Which is because the kind of response coming from Nagaland, for example, NNPG, for instance, they have expressed that, you know, they probably want to settle something, and they don't want to probably have a moment where they feel as if they have no point of return, probably. But I think for NSCNIM, in the recent most interview, it looks like they are threatening the government of India that we have still a point of return, probably, if we do not entertain our question of rights. Now, coming back to your question, I guess, for the Nagaland, I think, the bifurcation of Nagaland state has even not evoked any kind of real resistance from the Nagaland people, which means they're probably ready to share another federation or maybe another bifurcation of state, which was even given state rule in 1963, 62, and then probably 2009 you're seeing another bifurcation of Nagaland. Perhaps there's a history also, because Nagaland always was boastful of its. For instance, if you look at Naga resistance narrative, they would always say we were village republics. So therefore, the idea of association between the republics were also very independent, in a sense that the republics were independent in itself. And therefore, probably if any one of those historical republics go a different way, probably NSN probably or Naga national movement would not have really serious problem. But however, the point I want to raise is that the kind of three issues that Muiva just recently flagged off in the last week of September 2019, it looks like Muiva is actually turning back probably, because he looks, it seems like he's very anxious, because the kind of response coming from Nagaland and the kind of response coming from government of India and the kind of delaying tactics the government of India using, and probably we can also see one completely lost man in the name of RN Ravi, because RN Ravi was always promising that it is going to be ended very soon. But after becoming the governor of Nagaland, I think it doesn't look like he is able to handle the question of the diversity of responding to Naga question. The diversity is not only within Nagaland, but also within the Naga conception. Therefore, I think it is it is on the part of the Nagas probably to resolve its own differences. I think we don't have much to say. From probably belonging to any other community, I think you don't have much to say. I think the question is much more internal, because whether they decide on sovereignty question, constitution question, or a flag question, or something else within the constitution. Last point for me, I just want to wrap up by saying this first round, that if you look at, as ATHOUBA mentioned, 1975, there were two important issues. One, that within probably a reasonable time, the Nagas will try to frame their demands. That was one condition. The second condition was that we appreciate the supremacy of Indian Constitution. As a result of which, there was a clash within the NSN, or sorry, within the Naga movement. As a result, NSN probably was born.
Yeah, even what they enjoy today, Article 371A. That's the fruit of that particular.
But I think that was 1962. That was part of the statehood actually. So I just want to I just don't want to be so critical about NSNI movement or Naga nationalism, but I think rather let's see from a very neutral point of view and see kind of complexities itself which is involved in the kind of issues they've raised. Therefore, I think it is still a question mark on the part of us to understand what exactly is NSN movement trying to do. Are they trying to settle within the Constitution or outside the Constitution? At some point, they look like they want to settle within the Constitution, but now, September last week, probably they look like they're trying to go out of that frame again. So I think there's an inconsistency also. This is exactly a reflection of the frustration and anxiety and the kind of delaying that has happened in the process of peace talks.
I do also believe that, of course, the leaders of Naga, insurgent group might have been, really frustrated by now, because the talk has been going on for the last many years without any fruitful solution.
To be precise.
Exactly. Now, if we suppose that, of course, integration of all Naga inhabited areas under one umbrella unit is, for the time being, completely left out. And right now, if the Naga insurgent group are looking for a separate constitution or a separate flag, where is the apprehension of the people of Manipur in particular?
The people of Manipur, of course, ATHOUBA also said, Manipur has that idea of Manipur. And I think here we need to be a little flexible also from this point of view.
That's a good point.
What Ernst Renan says, a nation is a daily plebiscite. You can't be just hanging on to old ideas to solve new problems. So I think in a way that is not hurtful to us, and in a way that is not hurtful to anybody else, I think there has to be some bit of adjustment that has to be acknowledged, because we just can't be the dog in the manger, as I said. I won't allow you to do, but we're just hanging on to that old idea. If that old idea can be a little flexible, as I said in the thing, and this problem can be solved without anybody getting hurt, I think that is a way to look at the way forward. And as for the Nagas, the problem, I thought it was quite well spelled out in that letter open letter by KKSMA, where you were saying that you were talking of new constitution, so you want to abolish Nagaland, but you want your territorial council in Manipur. So what are you asking for? You want Nagaland to Nagas of Nagaland to just go nowhere, and then you'll have your council. That kind of a thing is there. So that has to be settled. But as to why this demand for constitution is coming up now. I think is unseen kind of compulsion on the negotiators. You don't do it, then what have we been fighting for? In 1975, the fighting could have ended. That's 43 years ago. 43 years ago, you actually rejected a settlement on the promise that we're going to have sovereignty.
Yes.
And you fight 40 years later, after so many people have died, so much of suffering is gone, you going back to that non-sovereign thing.
Yeah.
So that compulsion has actually made them to bring out this constitution again. That's my reading. That if you don't do it, then they will be blamed.
Legitimacy question.
They may actually be a repercussion against those people. You misled all of us.
Exactly.
So that's the kind of bargain they're doing, and it's not a very strong bargain. That is, they must be also knowing that this probably is going to be a big hurdle and maybe not work at all. But it is something that they have to do, because they have to atone for what they have done in 1975. 1975, you rejected something. You can't be coming back to the same thing after 43 years. After so much of suffering has happened, so much of killing, so much of lives wasted, and so much of careers wasted. After all that, if you're saying that, okay, let's settle here, that will be a difficult thing. That will probably have to come, because if there's no way forward, you have to settle with something. But to do that, I think they have to go through another kind of exercise where you pray together or sit down together and say so. There is a concept called the moral imagination, where we're talking about the actual events that happen, but that may not solve the problem. But sometimes what happens is there are certain ways of approaching the human problem which solves problems quite uniquely. In a sense, this John Paul Lodge has got a book called this moral imagination, where he was talking about specific cases in Africa. There were two tribes who were about to go to war. One is the elder chief, one is the younger chief, and they were going to fight on some issues. Then what happened? The younger chief actually stepped down a bit. He went to the elder chief and said, he prostrated to her, "You are like my father. Why should you tell me anything? I'll do it. Why should we fight?" and that kind of thing. And then that elder man also suddenly changed. Why this bandit is thinking, why my son? How can anybody think of hurting him? Well, let's solve the problem. So they sat down together and solved the problem. So I think that kind of moral imagination is what is necessary now for the Nagas as well as the larger community, with the Nagas and Meiteis and Kukis. Everything sit together. They, as I say, the problems that you can't solve with guns, you can solve with a handshake much more sometimes. And that kind of an approach, I think, is necessary at the moment, so that nobody is hurt, and it'll be a win-win situation if that kind of a resolution happens.
Okay. Well, the discussion is really getting interesting from here on. But yes, we'll have to take a short break. But after the break, we will get into the crux of the Naga issue. Keep watching Times of Manipur.
Choices, but at affordable prices. Fresh dal with a high wheat content, fresh vegetables and chicken make our food special and healthy. We have 3 types of pizza crust to offer you. A wide variety of fried chicken items, burgers, garlic breads, pastas and mocktails await you. Come to US Pizza and Fried Chicken for delicious belly-filling portions at pocket-friendly prices. And yes, we are kid-friendly too, so bring your kids and enjoy with them. Come, taste the best pizzas in town and a host of other food items at US Pizza and Fried Chicken, Sangay Pro.
Welcome to Times of Manipur. This is Tongrang giving you news in
Hana na fanglamba kang lafut ki product singi mathakta anuba product sing haibadi Milky Balls asomya mixture amadi alu bhujia na chingmasing asi hauzik iramdam gi kaithel da fangle kanglagi anawa product sing asi mayamsu amungtang mahaw yingbi
Kangla
Welcome back from the break. You're watching Talking Point, presented to you by Times of Manipur. And joining us tonight is senior journalist PRADIP PHANJOUBAM, Dr. ARAMBAM NONI, Assistant Professor, DM College of Arts, and General Secretary of United Committee of Manipur, KHORCHANDRA ATHOUBA. Now, after the break, I want to come to the same question. Being a representative of civil society of Manipur, or being a representative of people of Manipur, what is the major apprehension? And if you look at the way the talks is going on, it's definitely, I'm not going to say it's in favor of people of Manipur or in favor of people of Nagaland, but what is the major apprehension from your standpoint?
The major apprehension is very simple. As we have already said in my first round also, that the idea of Manipur is very likely to, compromise in that line.
But how? Because the territorial integrity of Naga inhabited area is being completely dropped off, if I'm not wrong. So how is the idea of Manipur going to harm?
See, when they don't compromise the territorial boundary, what they are trying to do is they are trying to settle somewhere in, making an arrangement like territorial council, Naga Autonomous Territorial Council.
Okay.
And if that kind of arrangement comes up, which is exclusively based on particular communities or particular groups, definitely when we look back to the various other territorial councils in the neighboring states of Assam, Meghalaya and other states, it is very likely that creation of a territorial council is a precursor to the formation of a statehood. Definitely they will come to a statehood demand, and that has already happened in the state of Assam. Say, for example, Bodo Territorial Council. Now they are demanding for a statehood. So, in case of Assam, it is okay. In case of Nagaland, what Noni just said, that is also okay, because when you divide this Eastern Naga block with the clubbing that 5 districts of ENPO and leaving behind all those remaining other 9 districts of this southern part, there isn't much problem, because the nature of the tribal territory in Nagaland, it's very absolute, and they have their limitations, and they have kind of that kind of federal formation. But in case of Manipur, we really don't have a particular territory for a particular community. It's a what do you say? It's a very heterogeneous kind of nature. All communities are mixed up in everywhere, and the very little territory that we have, which is just 22,327 square kilometers or something, this very little territory that we have, it cannot be divided into separate administrations, because by nature, by environmentally, when we look at it, we truly have the kind of topography or the kind of landscape that we have. It also has a compulsion to coexist together. Say, for example, the hills and the plains. The plains won't survive without the environmental support from the hills. And even economically, when we look at it, we cannot survive separately. So that will definitely give a threat to the existence of our own very existence. Therefore, it is very, it has to be dealt together. Otherwise, you cannot deal it separately. So when they try to arrange any kind of administration or any kind of welfare schemes based on a particular ethnic community, therefore then Manipur is a diverse state. Say, for example, then if that applies to the state of India, country, Indian state also. If you say that the South Indian part of India can be just separated from the mainland India, then India won't accept that. In that very similar line, Manipur, it's different. India was formed as a union just post 1947, but Manipur, we have been existing for the last so many years, so many centuries, and that idea should not be compromised. And anything that could lead to bifurcation or any distortion of that very idea of this Manipur, then it will be definitely lead to something which is not at the interest of the people of this region who believe in the idea of Manipur. And that's why we don't want to but they say we do accept certain areas that we already have our ADCs. autonomous district council.
Yes.
That's acceptable. We can empower them. The government of India can, provide them enough funds to, make their region developed or whatever they want to do it. But it should not bypass. It should not bypass the present state government. That's what we say. And if they want to give us, this, what do you say? They want to enhance the autonomy power. Then they should try to, enhance it in to the entire state. Like they can give us the greater autonomy to the entire state of Manipur. Likewise, if the government of India is looking to something like that, then that's acceptable. But it should not be based on particular, ethnicity, particular community. It should be, try to accommodate the entire, what do you say, communities living together, coexisting together. So that's what our
I just want to come to Dr. Noni again. Do you think the BJP-led central government is really serious this time to resolve this vexed issue of Naga once and for all? And where do you think, or what do you think will Naga accept? Their demand for sovereignty is almost out of the question right now. And separate flag or separate constitution, is this something that the people of Naga has been looking for?
I think it should be something like, the question should be, I would like to reframe the question something like this. I think we can compare the response of the Congress and response of the BJP-led government.
Yeah.
So I think the vexed question that you said in the very introduction of the talk today, I think this very vexed nature of the peace talk is still lingering on. I think it was not the Congress government that was very clear.
Yeah.
It is also the same government which is there, which is also not very clear. So therefore, I think it would be very difficult to say whether this government is really interested in resolving the question. Of course, but one footnote should be added. That is, probably in the context of this Kashmir experience, one can see that the Indian state is actually not really interested in experimenting more federal systems, number one. Number two, in the recent interview on 371A by Amit Shah probably, Amit Shah actually compared 370 and 371A for Nagaland. And he actually gave a very interesting analogy by saying that 371A has been more like a permanent structure within the constitution. However, 370 for J&K was defined more as a temporary law. So therefore, I think he was trying to gain the confidence of the Naga people by saying that we'll actually not play with 371A. Therefore, I think the question that you raise has to be understood from a very constitutional point of view. Whether the NACNIM really wants to resolve the question within the constitution or outside the constitution, I think they have also been sometimes very confusing. Maybe it is intentional, maybe it is a cheap for bargaining. But even then, I think in the whole process, what we have come to know is that there is a constitutional tangle in the very peace talks. But I think in the meantime, I just want to add on one more important thing. I think when we study Naga movement, I think we also need to acknowledge the kind of sacrifices and sufferings that the Naga civilians have gone through so far. Having said this, I think the Naga people probably want some kind of solution, of course, since they celebrated this very entrance into the peace talks in 1997. We witnessed that scenario in 1997 when we were in Delhi. We could see the celebration, the happiness for a peace talks. But in the last 22 years, the complexity is such that I think they themselves are getting divided, and they probably come back to the same question they began with, that is what actually we are supposed to do now. Therefore, I think when we are starting this Naga movement, of course it is a vexed issue. But I think whether this government is really keen to solve it or not, it looks like they're saying they want to solve it. They've given deadlines of the deadlines. August 3rd framework, for instance, now October 2019 framework again, and then probably to settle within this, by the end of this winter, the coming winter session, then I think this is all getting very complex. I don't see now RN Ravi coming forward and really gaining the confidence of the Naga people that this is our. So I think we can also see some kind of a breakdown between RN Ravi and the PMO. For instance, what RN Ravi was saying in his engagements, that every stakeholder should be or shall be taken into consideration. Now he is not talking that language anymore.
No.
Yeah.
He seems like he is very silent. And I think he was actually trying to report to the PMO saying that we are really in a good process. We are really very positive of the consequences. But I think now he doesn't say it. It looks like PMO is now overriding the role which was taken by the interlocutor Arun Ravi.
Yeah.
So therefore I think this is now getting a very, very national question for India, because PMO seems to be much more powerful at this moment of negotiation, and I think they are the ones who are setting agenda. As a result of which, last week September, Muiva really looked very anxious, very angry, and he was like, we are never going to be bogged down by this kind of government of India's approach. Therefore, I think the response of the Indian government towards what the Naga movement, particularly NSCN question, is getting very complicated. As you said, that integration of the Naga inhabited areas seems like slightly difficult, because the anxiety that you see in the interview of Mr. Muiva looks like he is completely given a setback. Probably the scope of the peace talk probably is going to be very constitutional, and probably I think there is probably a possibility of actually segregating the interests of the Nagaland's Naga and probably trying to deal with the other Nagas probably in some other phase. Well, I think that is how I think government of India looks like going ahead. So therefore I think it is going to be a very complex moment for the northeastern people, Arunachal, Assam, and probably Manipur, because I think there is a sense of real anxiety, sense of real threat. ATHOUBA has also mentioned, but I think I just want to take a very democratic explanation to this, that the anxiety of the Manipuri people, non-Naga people in Manipur is also very genuine.
Okay.
At the same time, the kind of aspirations they also carry must also be given some space where we can come together and talk, because it looks like government of India is not arranging anywhere that we can come together. It looks like that CSOs like leaders like ATHOUBA will have to take initiative and give an opportunity to the movements to come together and really talk what really we can initiate from our own side, looking beyond this very constitutionality and the PMO-centric peace talks, I guess.
More often than not, there is always a different statement coming from the government of India and then the Naga insurgent group. Do you really think that this is something that the government, for looking at the complexity of the issue, that the government of India is trying to buy time? Or the statement issued on the other hand, by the Naga insurgent group is something sort of a face-saving, because things are not actually going in their way. So do you really think that this is something we often talk that this is divide and rule policy being meted out by the government of India, or is really time slipping out of the government of India?
I think it's a question of indecision, that you cannot make a clear decision on both parts. The NSNIM probably is also seeing the problems, but they have to convince their people that this is working. And the government of India also cannot throw away the NSNIM because they are in peace talks, but they have to state their conditions for the solution. And one of them is the territorial integrity. They don't want to hurt the other states. And also we have to bring in the party equation here. Manipur is BJP now, and Nagaland is also a BJP aligned party. So they will try to solve the problem in a way that doesn't hurt both sides. And I think probably it's going to be a separate solution, which would be bad for Muiva. Separate solution for Nagaland, for instance, they can have a second chamber of the assembly. They can have the House of the Elders, which has been there for a long time, and they can have some other concessions for Nagaland only. And in Manipur, probably, I think if it's not territorial council, maybe the 6th schedule, the demand has been there. And also, there's another thing, that the territorial council or the 6th schedule is also more or less the territorial council, the 6th schedule. So the 6th schedule will solve the cookie problem as well, because they are the Sioux groups are also there. So if it's given for the Naga groups, then it can be given for the cookie groups as well. So they could be thinking on those lines. But what they should also think of is the other stakeholders and also the overlap territories. So much of the territories overlapped as how do you say, for instance, what do you do with Southern Hills, the Kampupi district? And Nagas are claiming that to be their original homeland, not an inch to be sacrificed. and also Chandel. Chandel is going to be much more messy, and Tamil Nadu, this is so much a mixed population, and also the idea of the territory. And in fact, I had done an article recently where I was comparing the idea of the homeland. You just love the land. You just it's a indigenous way of looking at land. Large stretches of mountains, large stretches of jungle, and then lakes and rivers. You just feel that it's yours, but it's not a possessive kind of a territory. So if there are other people also claiming the same thing, for instance, the Kogru, for a long time, Kogru, Thangjing, all these were also the deities of the Meiteis, and there are others claiming that to be there. They also loving it. So that love can actually overlap without actually fighting for it. But when you want to draw a modern boundary over it, modern territorial boundary over it, it is possession. You want to possess the resources, you want to control the resources, then the conflict will begin. So I think we have to demarcate the two concepts. The homeland can actually overlap without much problem if we stick to the original thought of the homeland, which is actually an indigenous way of looking at land. That this is my land, my ancestors were born there, other people's ancestors who were also born there, so they can share it. But once you start thinking in terms of modern territory, this is no longer the case. That we'll have to demarcate it. What is found in that territory will become mine only and nothing else, nobody else's. Those kind of things will begin to happen. And once that thing happens, then there's going to be conflict. So if we take this into consideration, then we can formulate another kind of arrangement where they can still remain overlapped. Or maybe it's even if it is 6 schedule, it's an administrative kind of thing. You include even the valley altogether. That kind. I'm just suggesting. I'm not saying that this is the precise thing, but don't make it in a sense that it becomes a territory. That it's an administrative division, like Imphal East and West. You're going to have Manipur East, West, Manipur Middle, or something like that. And then everybody is included into that. Then maybe there can be some kind of solution worked out. And as I said in the beginning, the moral imagination, how we solve problems, not using those modern paradigms, but using your own intuitive moral instincts. If you use that, they were my friends, they suffer so much, and we suffer so much. We can be together up to this point, but we have to leave some space for them to be themselves. They have to leave some space for us to be themselves, because we just can't be merged into one homogeneous unit. So that kind of arrangement, if we can work out, I think we'll have to use a lot of imagination. And as I said before, the moral imagination, that we are looking at peace, we are looking at sharing. And in fact, I was suggesting also that the NSNIM has been talking about the shared sovereignty with India, which, and the more important thing I said is to think of a shared homeland. You share homeland without encroaching into each other's rights or benefits. Just belong there, and we belong there together. That kind of an attitude can actually solve.
Okay. Now, I would like to come to ATHOUBA once again. Do you think that government of India has actually taken things very easily, very lightly, or they have taken this issue, for granted? However, some, years or decades down the line, they are not able to take a very concrete decision to, solve every small and big issues, which is facing in the Northeast. And that is the reason why they have to, spit venom among the people of, this region, and then, impose the divide and rule policy here.
You have just, before you just mentioned a very good term, that is buying time.
Yeah.
That's what government of India is doing. And we have been calling this for so long,
Okay.
but nobody listens to this.
Okay.
See, when you look at the course of events that's been happening around since 1997, it's been 22 years. If they are sincere enough, if they want to restore peace, if they want to make the Naga, so-called Naga people, flourish, then it could have been done long time back. But now they are not doing this. They don't want to do this.
Okay.
So it's high time we realized, on the government of India's policy, they want to create a communal rift among the northeastern region. Let me give you one very, simple example.
Okay.
Say, for example, in terms of economic policy, when I travel from Imphal to Aizawl, it's just 183 kilometers by year, and it will cost you 5,000 rupees for one ticket, air ticket. But when you travel from Imphal to Delhi, it goes around 4,000. And you are traveling not less than 2,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's a strategically crafted policy. They don't want to make the region, mingle each other frequently. They want to make us feel that we are more, familiar with New Delhi rather than my neighbor Aizawl.
Yeah.
So that's the sense. And we have recently experienced it, and every one of us in our recent, coming together in case of Citizenship Amendment Bill, we already have a common platform that's Northeast Forum for Indigenous People, and in that very forum, we have been sitting together for quite some time, and the Nagaland, civil society leaders, Manipur leaders, Arunachal, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram, everyone is coming together, and when we discuss issues, it is really, really out of the box.
Okay.
Previously we have been thinking some other things. We have been thinking that Delhi is more convenient to us, but now we realize that we have to make convenient ourselves first. So this kind of strategically, crafted policy of the government of India has to be exposed, and we need to realize it together. See, when we come to population again, Manipur alone, it comes around, say by next 2021, next census, we will be around 3 million, 30 lakhs population.
Okay.
But 30 lakhs population can't do anything. You can't have an industry to, just meet for, this 30 lakhs population. You have to come minimum at least 1 crore population. For that, we need to club together. Nagaland will come around 25 lakhs, Manipur 30, Aizawl and Arunachal and Meghalaya. If we come together, we have the number. If we have that number, we will be economically sustainable, we will be politically stable, and we will be militarily also, we will be mightier. So politically, to make it stable, it's a number game in the Indian Parliament.
Yeah.
Why Trinamool Congress is having a bid in Indian Parliament, despite they have representation just from West Bengal, because they have not less than 35 seats. So that makes them accountable. But from us Manipur and for us from Northeast, what is it happening? 14 from Assam, that 2 from different parties, 2 from Manipur, 1 from Mizoram, and 1 from Meghalaya. So that number won't do anything.
Okay.
So if we come in together and we come to a number of around 20, then definitely 20 is a good number when when you have a majority, very thin line, majority line in the parliament. So they will have a good number and they will have a good say in the Indian Parliament as well. So that way we have to look forward and we have to come in together. That is what we have been calling in. So the so-called the armed insurgent groups of the NSNIM or any other groups, we need to realize that the government of India's intent to resolve this very prolonged peace process is not what they really wanted. What they wanted is to keep on lingering, keep on prolonging it, and create the communal rift. They maintain it as long as possible, and they don't want us to come in a united voice, one single voice. But we have to break that ice and come in and raise to the government of India with one single voice, one single demand, and one single move. That way only we can defeat the government of India.
Numbers matter. Numbers matter. That's what ATHOUBA is trying to say. But Noni, I just want to know whether the group who are in talk with the government of India has failed to understand the real intention of the Indian government. How far would you say this is true?
I think I just want to begin with one issue which was raised by Mr. Pradip when he was talking about moral, I just want to talk about one principle called something called no harm principle. I think when ATHOUBA is talking so much about inter-community relationship and its consequences on them in the wake of the peace talks, I think one basic thing has to be understood by every end. That is that when we exercise our own ethnic postulations, for example, one has to be aware of this no harm principle. That when you consume something, for instance, if you eat something, you can't eat everything that is others, So therefore, I think when you do something in politics, you probably have to have this moral anxiety, moral concern that we have to live with the others. Therefore, I think this very no harm principle hasn't really worked, I think, in the entire discourse that you see. Because when you talk about Naga nationalism, then the opinion is very divided. The House is completely divided because the House hasn't maintained one basic moral principle, that is no harm principle. And I think I just want to emphasize that this idea of no harm principle has to be now understood very well to solve the inter-community or intra-community equations in the Northeast. One. Number two, I think there is of course a number game. And experts or law experts actually say, legal experts actually say that when you have very good strong government in the center, even sometimes judiciary is reluctant to interfere with the works of the government.
Yeah,
it looks like
it already happened in India.
it looks like that the attitude of the government of India, I think, must have been very well understood by people who are very much involved in the movement and having the first party to be part of the peace process. They must have acknowledged it. They must have understood it. That is the reason why we keep on saying that there is an anxiety, there is a frustration, there is a twist and turn. Every time. Today you have a news report which is going to be slightly negative, and then tomorrow you'll have another news report which is slightly positive. So I think there is a to and fro game happening. Therefore, I just want to say there is a sense of alienation already existing very strongly from the people in the Northeast. And therefore, ATHOUBA was hinting to some population politics. I probably would not say that way, but I think the Northeastern people must be able to put forward a very sharp pointed question for themselves. Instead of getting divided or instead of getting lived in a very divided house, I think NSCNIM is right time that they begin to not acknowledge this anxiety that has been generated by them in the entire course of peace process. So it can't be just Naga exclusive political peace process, because there are other communities who are also into these kind of struggles and this kind of movement. So because of this particular point, I think you have seen this particular region called Northeast completely entangled in conflict for so many years. I think it is also the responsibility of the NSCN and NNC leaning organizations that they begin to understand how they can negotiate with the communities living together, because you cannot afford to change the neighbors.
Yeah. So what we all want is, people of Northeast to be on the same page, so that we can put forward a very strong voice. Now, I want a very short remark from Pradip. The central government is known for being very aggressive. Now, we have BJP-led government here in Manipur. We also have a BJP-led government in Assam, neighboring, Assam, which might be affected by the Naga solutions at the end. And we also have, BJP-led government in Arunachal Pradesh, where we also have, a party aligned with BJP in ruling in Nagaland. So, do you think the government will have an, upper hand, when they want to impose their will?
Yeah, it can go either way. They have their own people in all the states, so they can say something and everybody can agree. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that you may end up breaking your own own house.
Okay.
So they will have to be extremely careful about this. And I think it's there again that they're walking on a knife edge, that you can fall either side, and so they have to be really, really careful. And as for the peace talks not making any progress or not coming to any solution, that can happen. And as a strategy also, maybe not very sinister as such. You've seen the Irish Republican Army, Sinn Féin, they went into a peace talks, and much earlier than even the NSNIM went into a peace talk. And they are just going, and it's not going, there's not going to be any solution in the near future. But I've seen some articles written on this, that sometimes, when you've been in such a bind for a long time, and that bind is actually not very healthy, people getting killed, so much violence. It's actually better that you keep that peace process moving, even if it's not having any immediate solution. And they give the analogy of the cyclist. You keep cycling, maybe you don't know where the destination is, but it's better you keep cycling, because the minute you stop cycling, moving the pedals, you fall. So the idea is to just not keep it fall. If the solution is somewhere nearby, and if you think that a solution is no longer there, that is something else. But if you think the solution can be worked out somewhere on the way, then maybe it's good to just keep cycling.
Okay, very good point. And then I want, yes, short remark, yes.
No, please.
Yeah, what come may, we are really not, as of now understanding what may happen, you know, out of this peace talk. But what come may, what will be your stand, or what would you like the people of Manipur to do in case of any eventuality?
Yeah. Well, before coming to the people of Manipur, let me go to Government of India first.
Okay.
Say, in the year 2017, 28 December, a team of civil society organizations have met the Prime Minister and the Union Home Minister at that time, Mr. Rajnath Singh and Mr. Narendra Modi. And in that meeting, the Prime Minister has already given us assurance that the final settlement of this very Naga peace talk will not be coming in without prior consultation with the people of Manipur, if Manipur is involved. So we urge the Government of India to keep the Prime Minister's words, and if they want to settle it, just take prior consent to the people of Manipur if the state of Manipur is involved in any case in the agreement. Number one. Number two, what we have been opposing, we want to make it very clear that number one, we don't accept any kind of territorial or provincial council. We don't also accept any kind of pan-Naga cultural kind of body, which will be clubbing together of the Nagaland and Manipur and Arunachal. This kind of structure is not acceptable, and no financial autonomy to be arranged bypassing the state government. That's not acceptable, and the 6th schedule provisions. That is also not acceptable. When PRADIP mentioned about the arrangement for Kukis and Nagas, of course they have that aspiration to, Kuki also sometimes reveal that instead of claiming the homeland, they want to settle somewhere.
Yeah, they've demanded it.
They already demanded with the SU groups, suspension operation groups in Delhi. So that is also not acceptable. We appeal to every communities. Today we had a press meet claiming, appealing to all communities that there should not be any kind of political demand based on particular community or ethnicity, and it should also not bypass the state government and the state assembly, and they should not just jump into the Government of India and demand it, because we will oppose it. Definitely we will oppose against it. Okay, and when coming to the people of Manipur, well, as Noni has mentioned earlier, that the abrogation of Article 370...
you have just a couple of minutes, yes.
Yeah, abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir, the way they deal it, it indicates a lot, and it can also happen in the state of Manipur anytime. And they are not that very friendly with the, so-called we people. So therefore, the people of Manipur needs to be in alert, and the United Committee Manipur is also moving on with our alert campaign. And if anything happens that comes against the wish and aspiration of the people of Manipur, then everyone should rise up and everyone should have a decision to be made. So be prepared, and let's all get on to wait for the wisdom to come.
Okay, so in short, we haven't had any idea of what may come as a fallout of the Naga talk. That is something that we have to see. But yes, what ATHOUBA has and appeal to the people of Manipur, that is, we need to be alert, and the government of India must also understand the complexity of the issue, complexity of the ethnicity, living together since time immemorial in this region. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us, and of course making this discussion very fruitful. Thank you once again to all the panelists. Thank you. Yeah. Well, that's what we have in this section of Talking Point. But yes, see you again at the same time on the same channel tomorrow. Till then, thank you for watching Times of Manipur.